Welcome to Delightfully Dysfunctional, a podcast about navigating the emotions of the human condition and the challenges that come with it. I'm Kaylani Persian Mason, a psychotherapist and life coach with James Timmons, an ever-curious human. This is not a replacement for mental health therapy. Please seek out mental health care if that's what you're needing. This is an opportunity for self-healers to dive deep and understand more about themselves. Welcome back to Delightfully Dysfunctional. I'm Kaylani, and I'm joined by James.
Hey!
And today we have such a fun, uplifting topic that everyone will relate to. So uplifting.
What is it?
Failure. And getting comfortable with failure.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, that's not uplifting.
But you'll feel uplifted by the time we're done.
Okay. I feel like I failed that greeting. When I said, hey.
Would you want another try?
No, it's already out there. I'm going to keep it.
Oh, okay.
But, you know, we're if the theme is to sit in your failure, then that's a one little micro example. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, you can never get that moment again. Sorry.
Yeah, true. But that's the power of editing. How are you doing?
I'm well. I just got back from a trip to Montana.
Nice. Yeah, that's right. I saw pictures.
Yes. Yeah, out in the outdoors.
We're recording this Monday, July 22nd. So when this drops, it will be July 23rd.
It'll be real fresh.
It's like literally just a few hours away.
Yeah. Which is not our typical turnaround.
No.
But you know what? We're
going to roll with the punches. And we're going to punch it.
Oh.
Punch it.
Oh, God.
Yeah, sorry.
That's too much.
That's aggressive. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
So what got me thinking about this is a few different things. I think some reflections from people in my life recently sharing about the way they were processing through a hard time in their life or a past difficult time and viewing it as a failure and kind of observing the ways that they protect themselves around that. And then I was also listening to an audio book. It was completely like unrelated to therapy, anything. It was like my first really fun book. But like the character was also ruminating on their failures and taking on more of a perception of having failed people in their life than was needed. So all of these really unhelpful thinking traps, these cognitive distortions, and I think it's good for us to bring it right to the forefront in a conversation and talk about it.
Yeah.
Because I believe that this is something we can all get really stuck in, and then we're stuck believing in something that just really isn't true or accurate and letting it rule our lives.
Absolutely. I mean, failure should not define you, because like if you gauge your life based on like a single season or a single event, then that's a form of judgment, you know, because like there's still a lot more that's going to play out. And I mean, I'm the worst with that, where I would sit and camp in my failures and I would let that define me, like, oh gosh, how's this going to look outwardly? And then but the lesson that I keep learning lately, just over and over, is that like you have to keep moving forward. Like no matter how you're feeling, no matter like how heartbroken or afflicted you are, like whatever things that you were putting your emotional stock into, you're investing in, if those things don't work out, you have to keep going. And then like so the theme for me is like building. I've been focused and committed on building this life that I want, and then I've gotten hung up on certain things that sort of derail me, and then the pain of when those things don't work out. But I'm just kind of like, no, like this cycle, this pattern has to end. Like I want the life that I want. I don't care who comes along, because like it's gonna attract the people that I want, you know, that belong there.
Right.
Yeah, sorry, that was a long tangent, but
no, I love it. It was a passionate speech. I was into it. It means knowing how to rise above a failure. Yeah. And I think a lot of like those who hold a perception of failure have a few things in common. One is probably a bit of perfectionism, a bit of not like letting go and allowing and accepting the reality of something not having had worked and holding on to a vision of what it should be.
Right.
With like a very tight, controlled grip. It should look this way. It shouldn't be this way.
Yeah.
I should have done this. And all that shitting on oneself is just
don't shit up. Yeah, that's right.
It's a real mess. And then I also think that there's this real element of personification is the term that we could use. And that's where people can take on other people's issue, take on more ownership of a failure than is needed.
Yeah.
And view it as like, it was all my fault that marriage, my marriage went wrong or whatever.
I do that.
Or it's all my fault that this thing didn't go the way that I pictured it, et cetera, et cetera. And taking on more of that rather than viewing it, the way that I like to view life, and I try to, the perspective I have is that everything is a lesson.
Absolutely.
So then instead of the heartbreak having this tinge of what would have been, or a difficult season feeling as though there's some alternate universe with a perfect path where that isn't happening, we're free of failure, that is all erased in this image of understanding that, there's a real lesson within this hardship. There's a lesson within this failure.
Yeah.
What can I glean from that? And it takes a very heavy dose of humility.
Totally. Yeah.
And a balance in understanding and not tipping over the edge of a real shame spiral.
Yeah. I love everything you're saying, because like the word, like failure, to experience that, like to feel like something was a failure just means that you had like the wrong expectations. Because like if you like that Bluey episode that we reviewed, where the whole sentiment was like, we'll see. Because like if you put all this stock into like some future plans and then it doesn't turn out, then you look at that as a failure. But it's like, no, if you just approach like, I'm going to do my best and I'm going to hope for these things to pan out. But when they don't, it's more just like, actually, that was just a lesson. So accept it with grace and give yourself grace. Like, I still earnestly was doing my best, and if something doesn't pan out, then like you said, there's so many things to glean. Don't miss that.
Right. Yeah. So you have to give yourself enough grace to be able to hold that perspective. Because I think we can hold ourselves to a very high and unrealistic perspective.
Totally.
Or feel that sense of comparison with other people. Oh, they would have done it this way. It wouldn't have happened to this person.
Yeah.
Or viewing it as though there are more failures under my belt than anyone else's. And none of those things are true. And none of those things are facts. Our thoughts are not facts.
Yeah.
And then another trick when it comes to failure and the way that we think about it and process it is viewing self-worth tied to success. People who equate that sense of self-worth of really liking who they are and feeling comfortable with who they are, and viewing it as if their achievements aren't matching it and showing it, then who are they? Yeah. And this can actually be really difficult for people who are struggling, but also for people who have achieved everything that they've wanted and still don't feel good about themselves. Yeah. Still don't really love themselves. Still struggle with the trauma from their past and deep shame. Yeah. And there is no amount of achievement that can fill that hole without really doing the work. Yeah. I know I'd mentioned once upon a time, it was a podcast I was listening to, and I wish for the life of me I could remember what it was, but this person was being introduced by the host and saying all of their achievements, PhD of this, head of this department, wrote this paper, wrote this book, on and on and on. It was quite a long and elaborate, rich endorsement of this guest on the podcast, and the guest just said, that really sounds like an unhappy person. Yeah. Because he noted that those were things that he was chasing for this temporary moment of reprieve that would always dissipate, and he'd be left feeling as though he had to chase the next thing.
Right. And you're like running from yourself because you're trying to shoulder all these accolades so that you can almost gain approval from from the outside world. But it's like, if you were to take all that away, can you sit with yourself? Like, if all that wasn't there, can you just be happy in your purest version? Like, for me, that was my reality, where I found like pretty good success in my accomplishments, and like I had this great reputation. And then one day I self-sabotaged for a season, and like everything was like taken away. And so I remember, and then for a couple years I had to sit, and when I still struggle, like, am I happy being me? And I mean, if I'm being honest, sometimes I can't say yes, but I know that that's still the life lesson that I have to learn, that I have to, like, if I want to like attract someone into my life, I have to be happy being in my life, And
and in those moments, sometimes it's like the simplest of things. It's just noticing, okay, am I doing things to take care of my body? Am I doing things to take care of my soul? Am I like spending time outside? Am I doing things that are there to enrich my life? Because that's a practice of self-worth, is also, am I activated in the activities that are going to help train me to take good care of myself? And I'd also say, I don't know that you would have been on the same season or the same trajectory of personal growth and deep insight into yourself if life had stayed, quote unquote, easy.
Yeah. I would have been happy if life had stayed easy, though. Like, if I didn't have to learn all the lessons. I mean, wouldn't it be great if you were born, your life was super easy, and then you died? I mean,
I know no such life.
But I know. But I mean, like, just
I don't know this
if
person.
you've never experienced one bit of trauma your whole life, like, that's ideally what
I think
the
from
goal.
my very existential perspective, that actually sounds really miserable.
That's true.
I want to capitalize on this life, and I think that hardship is a beautiful tool to also fortify who you are.
Well, and to experience,
really create a sense of trust in yourself and in your abilities and in your resilience, and that can only happen in the battle of hardship. You're meant to be here for a reason, and it isn't just to coast.
Right. I mean, I was being facetious, but I agree with you, because
gave me a good opportunity to get on my soapbox. Thanks.
Well, I mean, because like those highs feel so much more fulfilling when you've experienced the lows, and so it is like a almost like a beautiful type of resilience when you're going through a really terrible experience, and you can look, because you've had so much life experience, that you can say there's going to be beauty on the other side of this. And I don't know how that's going to play out. I don't know how long this pain is going to last, but I've experienced enough pain to know that it's never in vain. It's, something beautiful is going to be on the other side of this.
I think balance. I think the world does operate in balance. And it's just continuing, to have your eye on the prize, but you have to define what it is you want as well.
Right.
And sometimes I think failure can happen from a lack of direction in one's life. They just view everything, quote unquote, bad as having been a failure. But if, let's say, I have I'm trying to think of what a good goal would be. My goals these days are have changed in the way that I word them quite differently than how I used to. I would say that I was someone who was probably seeking achievement and more letters behind my name, and thought that felt good and would be nice and cool, and that would be, people would like me or think I know things, and I don't feel that anymore. So now, like, a goal that I have is, I just want to really practice being authentically me. I want to practice the way that I talk about myself and other people, so that it's always compassionate, because that's a mirror that I get to use when I'm working on soothing myself. I want to work on how to be more present, or how to navigate a new task, and the achievement of the new task is exciting and fun along the way, but it's nothing about, any accolades.
Right.
Even in this, which I think people who I don't know. I think if anyone watched our podcast and YouTube, I think if I were watching someone else in the same way, I would assume, oh, if they have like a podcast in the YouTube, they're really in it for, I don't know what, the attention or the, I don't know that we're getting praise, maybe.
I mean, we are getting,
yeah,
you know.
we're getting something, yeah. But to me, my goal is and has always been, I really hope that I get to connect with people, that I get to connect with people who are hurting and need to hear a message or a deeper insight, or who just need to hear someone who says like, yeah, it's hard and I get it. Like, let me sit with you in that moment. Let me sit with you here right now.
Yeah.
You're not alone in that.
Well, and like, just think about that, how we've made it almost like an unspoken point to not run from ourselves in this podcast, and like to be like brutally authentic and vulnerable and curious. And so like, it's because the message is the world needs you, but the world needs you, capital Y-O-U, like the purest version of yourself. Stop running from you because we need you. And then it's like, it's so cool that the reflection of that is that you have lived out like a pretty pure version of yourself and authentic in like the videos and things. And now we have, you have we have over 11,000 subscribers and like a pretty large platform across social media. And you have a lot of good fan feedback, and it's like, see, we told you, like, if you live out the pure version of yourself, the world is going to love it.
I hope that's what I'm modeling. I hadn't thought of it that way, but I hope so. And I think, I don't know, it's just so much fun. It's so much fun to get to engage even in the comments that I see, that it's helping people like think a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
Like take it, like consider a new thought, consider a new perspective.
Well, have you read the comments today of the NF video?
Just like right before we started, I pulled it up, but I saw a couple of recommendations.
They all rave about you.
Oh,
they're like, she's so great that Kaylani does it again. That kind of stuff.
That's so cute.
You gotta read them. Yeah, and I sit there and laugh because it's just cool to see. But sorry, we're talking about failure, aren't we?
Yeah, we're talking about failure.
Are we failing with staying on topic?
I'm trying to bring us back in.
Sorry, I'm more passionate tonight for some reason.
Yeah. But here's the other thing that's very true of success in any way, is that it can also feel like a really far way to fall.
Yeah.
As well. And so I think there's some people who are even afraid of trying for those reasons.
Yeah.
And there's so many people who are afraid of trying. They're afraid of being bad at something.
Well, yeah. I mean, like, I can tell you, like, our little side series that we've tried to launch, the Fully Dysfunctional, I'm like so scared and like hesitant to actually do those, because it's something that it's like comedy from my soul, and I'm so afraid of it like falling on its face that I'm just like, the rejection of that is too painful. It's not even worth it. I just don't even want to try, but then I'm like, but then I know that I'd feel good if I'm like,
I think you should probably do it, because you drug me into being in front of cameras.
That's true.
So it's only fair.
That's true.
In fact, it's overdue.
Well, we did one that I'll have to let you and Zach preview it, because I'm not super excited about it, but
you know what? But part of I think navigating the risks of failure is trying to keep it in a fun, curious space.
Yeah.
It's trying to make sure that the goal is also has some levity.
Yeah.
And that can't be done in every goal, but I think that it definitely takes the edge off if it's like, I'm going to try this, and I'm going to play around with it, and I'm going to mold it, and it's allowed to change.
That's
and it's
true.
not allowed, it doesn't have to be amazing right away. In fact, I'm just using this as practice to have a way to express my humor, and as a way to just connect and make someone laugh and smile that day. And now it feels different.
Yeah, now you've talked me into it. Because that's what our whole podcast has been. Like, we kind of try things. We're like, okay, that didn't work, but let's do this. And, it's kind of like ebbs and flows. And then you just kind of like sort of like fail your way to success.
Yeah. Right. Fail up.
By the way, side note, see these stickers on my hand? I ate dinner here at the Mason's house, and Priya kept putting all these little
I know you have
Pixar
so
stickers.
many. I know. I peeled mine off. I don't know where it went actually, and it's probably like hidden somewhere in my hair.
I'm not gonna remove them. Here, we'll put on this. You can't really see. Anyway.
It's your lovely decoration. It's like a new tat.
I like it.
So a practice that many of us are not great at, it is something that truly needs practice, and it is a skill, is how to speak compassionately to ourselves, how to have that compassionate self-talk and not respond with harsh criticism, but how can we be supportive and kind, kind of like a coach.
Yeah.
So, and for many of us, that's likely not the voice that we were raised with. Very frequently, kind of the way that we treat ourselves, the way our psyche takes on that flavor of self-talk has to do with our attachment to our parents and the way that they spoke to us.
Yeah.
So it can be a difficult thing to form without some practice and a different kind of relationship with someone else, which is why therapy is one route that really helps, is that you have this therapeutic relationship and someone else to teach you what that means. So instead of failed again, everyone's going to know. And, this is what everyone's going to think of you, or just like kind of digging that really negative space out and letting it fester and ruminating, which is one of the leading elements of where depression grows and starts to really become its own thing. We want to try and nip that in the butt. We want to try and have then some compassionate self-talk. That doesn't mean like take yourself off the hook and you have to take ownership still for your actions. But it's, hey, failure is a part of being human.
Yeah.
So if you're here to be human, it's going to be a part of it.
Right.
And it doesn't need to sting as much as you're taking it on. In fact, it might be causing more problems. So let's take this lesson, even if it's painful. Acknowledge if it's painful. Yeah. It fucking sucks. I really had a different vision. I was really excited for what this other idea was going to be.
Yeah.
Let yourself mourn that dream.
Yeah.
But acknowledge that this is life just saying there's a different route. There's a different path.
Yeah.
And there are so many people. I mean, in history, we often hear of one's, great accomplishments and the highlights of their life. But it's important for us to also remember that most notable people failed a lot.
Yeah.
They also tried a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
And so it is that trial and error of getting back up and rethinking that's really important in your own time. Your own time. There's no rush. But there is a rush in the way that you do talk to yourself, because there is no trophy for being the biggest asshole in your head.
Yeah.
You wouldn't say those things likely to anyone else, to your best friend, to a child, then you shouldn't be saying them to yourself.
Yeah.
And especially for anyone who has children, if these are things you might say out loud too, which can happen, your kids are hearing that too. They're hearing that. And they'll often, like I said, develop that internal voice that is familiar with what they saw, what was modeled, what was told to them.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's working through like a compassionate meditation, which I've been working on creating some more for you guys. I'm really excited. I'm going to have a freebie up on my website soon. And Oakley, my bonus son, he's going to be creating some more meditation music. And I plan on making one about compassion. So I'm super excited about it. I think another kind of cute twist on how you can develop some self-compassion is also to find a picture of yourself when you were a child and to put it up in your bathroom and kind of like, what would you tell her? What would you tell him? How would you talk to that version of you?
Yeah.
Like, we're connecting to that inner child and wanting to really reparent around that.
Yeah.
And to reflect on past failures and identify the lessons and the areas of growth. Like, relook at some of the things that you might have pointed a finger at and said was a failure, but also notice everything that has happened since then that has hopefully been positive or a redirection in a good way. And for some people, when they do this, it might be a really hard moment of self-reflection if they realize, oh, I haven't learned my lessons and maybe I'm ready to now.
Yeah.
But that takes humility, and I send you so much love, and I'm cheering you on if you're in that point, because that's a really tough pill to swallow, and yet I know that turning point is going to be so powerful.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I hope I'm giving some perspective on why I think we should reframe the way we think about failure and focus on the process rather than just the outcome, because this whole life thing, it's the process of it.
Yeah.
It's the process of, am I getting better at navigating and holding healthy perspectives that are going to yield far more like positive change in ourselves and in others than being a dick to yourself, ultimately.
Yeah, a lot of grace and a lot of curiosity and like willingness to learn. Yeah.
And in that process, like I said, I'm humble enough to also have to like swallow some tough pills when it's like, oh, I didn't act within my values and I need to reflect on that. But it doesn't feel the same thing as failure.
Yeah.
It's still uncomfortable to notice, but I'd much rather notice it and address it and like have that be a goal that I'm working on than to wallow or just feel helplessness, which is a part of failure, I think. It's a mourning of realizing that we don't have control over our life in the way that we would like.
Right. I wish I had total control over everyone, like a dictator.
I wish none of that for any of us. And
Sorry, did I just ruin that like really beautiful moment?
I'm like, everyone should run right now. I'm going to give you a head start and
thankfully,
go.
I don't have that power, but I do have that power over my life to a certain degree. Yeah, so I feel inspired now, Kehlani.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to read you a few inspiring quotes as well. Okay, you ready? J.K. Rowling, author of the Harry Potter books, said, I'm going to say that again. J.K. Rowling, author of the Harry Potter books, said, "It is impossible to live without failing at something, unless you live so cautiously that you might as well not have lived at all, in which case you have failed by default."
Yeah,
that sounds like that easy life you were wanting.
Yeah, I was going to say, going back to... Yeah, whatever.
It's okay. You're in a different season, but it's going to get easier. It is.
Yeah.
This is a good one. Michael Jordan. "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed."
He wasn't a very good baseball player, though. Just kidding. Go ahead.
Oh, my gosh. I'm going to find another good one. Cook up a good one for you.
Okay. I'm ready to be
There
inspired.
is no innovation and creativity without failure, period.
That's very true.
Brene Brown.
Ooh, Queen Bee. We haven't heard from her in a while.
Yeah, she's making a comeback.
Is she?
Well, I mean, because I just mentioned her.
Oh,
She's
okay.
coming back right now. Yeah. And this was a speech, I guess, by Teddy Roosevelt. I know I've said it before on the podcast, but I really love it. And Brene Brown is who I first heard it from. But it ties so well into this episode. So I'm sprinkling it in again. You just have to deal with it if you've heard it before. So Teddy Roosevelt, this speech, the man in the arena. "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasm, the great devotions, who spends himself of a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end of the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. So that is his place, shall never be at those cold, timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat.
Yeah, I remember we made a reel about that one, and that's a very powerful quote. Yeah.
And in this conversation about failure, I hope it also might inspire some people to actually try. It might inspire them to fail greatly, beautifully. Like, fail and learn and keep going. There have been so many failures that I've had in like growing my practice and like, especially the tech end of it. It's just like embarrassing. It's so true. And yet, I don't know, when you have a dream, you keep it alive.
Yeah.
When you have a dream, you keep trying. And there's so many ways that you can improve and know that you're not alone in that. Yeah. And I think that that's a piece that's important for us to know in this time when so much of society is too disconnected and is too individualistic. It's easy to forget that failure is normal. Failure is a part of being human.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have nothing to add. You've given us some slam dunks.
Did you get your pep talk for the week?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really all this is. It's just designed for you to have a pep talk for the
Yeah. Sorry, listeners.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, James, joining me on this adventure. And where there's been a lot of failures and things that haven't gone right. And yet, isn't it all still worth it? It is all worth it. Absolutely. Yeah. It's so fun. Yeah. Sorry, it's the end of the day and my brain is now trying to go to sleep. Okay. And our air in here has also depleted and it's like over 100. So we should probably wrap this up. Yeah. And I still got to edit this. Okay. Well, thank you so much for listening, and we hope to see you in the next one. Please like, subscribe, share, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye. Bye.